The past year of Diablo 4 has been a never-ending journey of missteps and disappointments in the seasonal realm. Yes, you have the incredible Season 2 and a great Season 4, which brought the Loot 2.0 system, but it seems that ever since the game has been running a casual sprint in the generic direction of unlocking new powers, which is the same old system rehashed over and over and over, and perhaps overhauling one existing mechanic and packaging that in a single new, exciting feature of the game. When Season 6 was released, seasonal mechanics were completely underwhelming, adding nothing new to the game except for some consumables. Season 7 brought back the idea of powers, although in a much more toned down way than the vampiric ones from Season 2, which drastically changed the way that the class actually played back then. But no real content was really added to the game. Despite all that, and given that I love the game, I was excited to see the new seasonal mechanics and in the hope that they move into the right direction. Suffice it to say, the last Campfire chat has been as exciting as going to the proctologist and having your prostate exam without any lube. So I thought I'd put my thoughts online to vent, well, because I do love the game, and even though I know no one will likely watch this video, perhaps a few people might resonate with the issues I had with their chat. So they start off with stating that they have realized that they don't like changing the builds we love and enjoy midway, and that they also don't want to see players scale things up too quickly, a theme that will become recurring within the chat altogether. Therefore, they'll be squashing builds a lot harder at the beginning of the season if they don't align with their idea of progress through a season. Another thing that they keep harping on about over and over and over. They say that they don't want to squash overpowered builds initially too much, but at the same time they couldn't buff builds that are underperforming to the tier of the other builds, because otherwise they'd be getting to tier 9000 and it would be an arms race. It doesn't make sense. They don't like how Blood Wave was too strong at the beginning of the season. I don't quite think the developers have put much time into understanding why Season 6 was so successful. It wasn't the exciting seasonal journey, and it wasn't only because of the new expansion. The reason why over 60% of players got to play that much was because they chose the Spiritborn class, and the class was so overpowered that they managed to finally clear the content in the game they hadn't been able to do before. Why is it that every season they introduced something gamers love, see ultimate buffs for Season 7, for the Druid, Necros, and other classes, then they realize, oh wait, they're having too much fun, and not in the way that we want them to, clearing content too quickly, so we must artificially debuff it? Could it be that they could slightly tone down overperforming builds by maybe, let's say, 10%, and perhaps raise the other ones to the same level so that players could have more choice and variety to reach the idea of a godlike character in the game, like they say? And then, if you actually add a new content each season with the pinnacle stuff to kill with those builds that requires actual skill, it might not end up being a race to pit 9000 with artificial difficulty. Could it be that each season they could adjust and bring the level of the underperforming builds of the previous season so that every avenue becomes viable, and ensure that the hardest content is only completable by the players who have significantly invested in min-maxing the gear and skills of that build?
You serious?
Nah, why should we balance the game? And why should we allow players to have a choice and fun? It's the players' fault if they find broken builds, right? Not our lack of internal testing or care to balance out classes so they all are fun and viable. No, I couldn't possibly have put us in this position, right? So they're going to pivot and adjust their philosophy. A word that by now sounds similar to dogma than actual is true meaning. Do not do massive swings at the mid-season, but instead do it all at the initial part of the season, meaning that if you find a build that might be OP, since you might not have invested heavily in it, they'll likely squash it if it doesn't adhere to their quote-unquote philosophy for speed and content completion within a season. They also want to continue with the idea of forcing players into builds that they've newly made. And that's the developers, not the players. Like for Season 7 with ultimates, and then scrap it the season afterwards, making it impossible for those players who fell in love with a specific place or a class within a season to be able to recreate in the season afterwards. Because there's no point, it's gonna be sucky. Just look at the Spiritborn. The class was bugged, yes, but it was fun to play. And did they tone down the class bar to allow it to clear stuff as quickly as Druids and Necros can clear it this season? Nah, let's throw down into the ground so that players who love the class can go cry in a corner or are forced to try whatever class the developers deem to fun this season, you know? I also love their optimism about running the build fixes within the first 2 weeks of a season when builds are still broken months and months after things have been found. See the Shatter build, or Cataclysm Lightning Bolt, or even trying to fix the Mandarin Ring, which only took a month for them to get it right. Then they move on to talk about the pace of the game. They say that the Season 7's progression is way too fast, a lot faster than expected. Wonder why. They show a graph to indicate that the Season 6, it would have taken an average of 16 hours to reach max level, and this season only 9 hours on average. Perhaps could it be that it's because the seasonal theme of favors and caches contain extra XP modes? Nah, it can't be that. Players are way too quick to get to level 60, and that Season 6, who had a lot of positive feedback to progression, was a good pace of leveling target. So they're going to bring it back to the same place and maybe tone it down exactly how Season 6 was, right? Right. Fuck that. We're going to make it that the first 25 levels are slower and grindier, and we're going to make it, wait for it, so that rares and magic items are more impactful. Now, as someone who's been helping hundreds of people breeze past the leveling experience in stream daily, I don't understand how developers could think that what a player absolutely loves to do is the actual leveling bit and getting tons of magic and rare items early on so they can delay getting their hands on aspects that and get their builds online sooner. It's not the new seasonal power or any endgame content, if there were any, that they should try. No, it's a leveling experience that they had to go for over a year every single damn character. You know why?
Yeah, so the other half of Diablo is obviously the max level endgame, right?
Well, because the developing team actually believes that the leveling experience accounts for 50% of the actual in-game content. How is it that they've gotten so out of touch with the community that they believe that half the game is leveling? That just it's baffling. The developers quote the fact that the players have called Diablo 4 a weekend game that has no difficulty and you can just blast through the content quickly. Maybe it's because there is no real aspiration game content, challenging dungeons, or raids like World of Warcraft, Destiny, or Lost Ark, where people have to use skills as much as gear to complete content, learn mechanics, and feeling this sense of accomplishment when they accomplish the pinnacle content that only the top players can achieve, rather than bash their heads against artificial difficulty on pit 150. Oh, they're definitely going to fix it this season. And you know how? Well, they're going to increase Torment difficulty and PTR difficulty artificially by 20% in scaling of each pit level and Torment level. What? So let me get this straight. You believe that by artificially increasing the time and tediousness in the parts that are already tedious in the game, and by artificially increasing the HP, defenses, damage of pit mobs for each pit by 20% stacking, so it's not just 20%, it's a cumulative 20%, it will make your players want to achieve that content even more? Yes, because there's nothing better than pulling the old kill 'em all by hitting it 1,000,000 times now instead of 500,000 times to make the game more fun, engaging, and satisfying. It's the equivalent of watching paint dry on a wall while bashing your head 500,000 more times on the wall to make it dry quicker. It's something that has been criticized in game design since forever. Just look at the Division 1, how certain it was that you could empty an LMG into an enemy elite head and only remove 10 to 15% of their HP. And seeing as pit 150 is the only thing that quote-unquote tests a player and that they've put it in the game, now they expect no one to accomplish it anymore.
So difficult that I don't believe any of you will reach it. I'll do something silly on it.
Why do you put it in the game then? And wait, there's more. It's only 10% of players that should play Torment 4, as they state in the chat. So they expect only 10% of people to play the endgame, which is the real game content. Most of the remaining 90% should be leveling mostly and trying Torment 2, 3 as aspirational content. Whatever happened to game philosophy of making content fun? If a player's having fun, they won't quit, right? But here instead, we get the journey is better than the destination. Except the journey in their mind is extended by now adding 10 kilometers more broken glass that we have to drag our balls through to reach endgame. This truly seems like a masterclass in game design philosophy and development of a successful live service online game. But wait, it's not over. Then they shift the focus onto the big seasonal theme. Oh, we're excited. Could it be a new endgame content that has never been done before? Where there's completely new mechanics like other RPGs have done? The Path of Exile 2, Last Epoch, PoE 1, Lost Ark, any? Oh, sort of, but not really. We're getting 3 new bosses to farm ad nauseum, although now you can unlock powers from these bosses to slot in where you could slot in which powers. And now you can't even help your friends anymore run your runs with your own materials to get the gear. Nah, everyone has to have their own mounts to open a chest and complete the boss to get the loot. And guess what? If you're lucky, you're going to be able to get another boss to kill right after that one to trigger randomly to open another chest right after. And this completely random second encounter is the only way to receive the mats to do a new pinnacle boss, Belial. Same, but different, but same. And there truly is nothing that says new actual endgame, like adding 2 or 3 more bosses that will eventually be one shot to farm the same gear over and over and over and over again. And what happens if you've already got the gear? Oh, well, you can just farm them over and over for the seasonal mechanic. Right. How do they think this to be new content is beyond baffling? You look at games that have added completely new mechanics, dungeon raids, and actual new world parts as seasonal themes. I'm looking at you, Path of Exile 1. And then you come back to Diablo 4 to see that the same content is the new content, but only a bit differently, and artificially increased in difficulty to extend the time the players will be spending in a line game. This will look much better on the internal tools, telling them that more people will play for longer. Most likely those tools will show only 10% of the players playing the game past the 3-week mark. It's the same as all other fixes that they will make to the current builds that are fun and working. The answer is always, well, we don't like it working this way. We didn't intend it like that, so we want players to play it this way, so we're going to put a stop to it. You can't have any fun. Anyone seen a recurring theme here? I do wonder how they got these ideas in their head. But then I harken back to my experience with working with corporations, and I realized they don't truly care about your feedback unless it's oblivious, because they've got to shift the steer in the direction of what the top brass thinks is right, rather than accepting that your product and the actual customers that consume it are the ones who decide where it should go. And it's not like there hasn't been a lot of feedback in well over a year of incredible content creators telling them from the alpha stage that their game was heading in a completely wrong direction. Simplifying the convoluted boss system and adding a stack of 99 entry materials is only fixing a mess that shouldn't have been there to begin with. And also, why 99? Why not 999? Oh wait, the coding is crap. Oh. Also, why not make it so that all builds in every skill, ultimate or not, is viable to be built into to reach quote-unquote endgame or pay 150? See, if you were able to each season nerf the overpowered stuff that isn't working because of a bug, and then the stuff that was overtuned by 10%, and then bring the current seasonal stuff in a power line of that 90%, then each season you could shift the focus to the other skills and builds within each class. That way, players could either choose to go into Season 8 with Bloodway, Cataclysm, Rain, or Arrows, or to try out the new builds that could have been enabled by the new gear and changes you've added. By the end of the year, all classes will be balanced, and you could build into old builds if you fall in love with them, or try new ones without the fear of having invested hours into something you might not like, have no fallback or issue, or the issue of playing only what the developers think you should be playing this season and what they think is fun this season, as otherwise you won't be able to do the content you like. I'm looking at you, poor Spareborn lovers of Season 7. Then something else that you could do is ensure that the leveling stays within those 16 hours, because apparently that looks good on paper, and then provide one new completely unique seasonal map content endgame piece that isn't just editing old systems or adding a new spin to them. That isn't season worthy content, it's just fixing and editing. That every 3 seasons, perhaps, or even 4, you could add an incredibly OP pinnacle content that only the top percent of players can aspire to do if they put the time and skill into it, on top of the new seasonal content. Ooh, and cherry on top, you can make it so that all this seasonal stuff becomes permanent into eternal from now on. But none of that is going to happen, because Activision Blizzard's Diablo designers are led by the executives who only have to steer the ship to the safe harbors of the bottom line and the next war projection matching. It isn't the philosophy of making the game fun. See, you could have the simple principle of, is this actually fun and exciting for our players? And if not, it automatically gets vetoed instead of being put into the game. But in a corporate environment, it's actually next quarter pushing, allocating little to no resources to maintain the current lifestyle, whilst we focus on the next thing without care to pause and take 2 steps back and realize that the ship is going in the opposite direction of what the majority of players who actually love the game want. And that distinction between the people who actually love but criticize the game, like myself, and those who love to criticize and that's it, is really important. because you need to pay attention who you listen to. But I guess for the foreseeable future, or perhaps years, in Diablo 4, we'll have to hop into game and make our own fun, seeing as you can only do the same freaking content for so many years, even if it's a little bit edited, until you get bored and quit a season 4 weeks in, like the vast majority of players do. This is the actual cause of your season failing. Well, I'll be hopping on and playing the game because I love it and because I have a fun community to play with and we make our own fun until we find an alternative that suits us. So I wish you all best of luck in the PTR. Hopefully something will change this year. If not, we'll see. Be good, be kind, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!